Part 1. In the dead of night, beneath the flickering glow of a lone street lamp, a grim tableau unfolded that would send shockwaves through a city already haunted by its dark past. In a modest apartment on the outskirts of a bustling American suburb, the lifeless body of a once notorious criminal lay sprawled in a manner both methodical and macabre. The victim, known only as Travis in whispered circles of the underworld, had once skirted the edges of legality, his record tarnished by violent crimes that forever bound him to a legacy of infamy. Now, the forensic team's grim discovery revealed that his end came not through a haphazard act of violence, but via a series of chilling, deliberate actions. A close examination of Travis's body unearthed a nefarious method of murder. First, a potent injection of a drug that rendered his muscles inert, paralyzing every limb, followed by a second, equally calculated injection that sabotaged his blood's ability to coagulate. As blood steadily seeped from precise, surgically inflicted cuts across his flesh, it became painfully clear that his killer had engineered a death as gruesome as it was intentional. Amidst this orchestrated brutality, detectives discovered a single, cryptic word scrawled on a fogged-up bathroom mirror: Kara. The inscription glowed with an almost spectral clarity, a taunting signature left behind, as if the murderer wished to be both recognized and reviled. Forensic experts and veteran investigators scrambled to decipher its meaning, pondering whether Kara was a name, a code, or a twisted symbol of retribution. The initial shock of Travis's murder set the stage for an investigation that promised to dredge up secrets long thought buried. Shadows of past misdeeds loomed large, and as whispers about old sins and dark alliances grew louder, the trail of evidence began to lead the authorities deeper into a labyrinth of deceit, where every answer only unearthed more questions. In the charged atmosphere of smoky interrogation rooms and dimly lit back alleys, the investigation was about to take a turn for the unexpected, drawing connections to individuals whose own histories were steeped in infamy and regret. Part 2 will continue in the next message. Part 2. As the investigation deepened, the trail of blood and cryptic symbols led detectives into even darker territory. The next twist emerged when authorities traced a series of clandestine phone calls to Michael, a man once intimately tied to Travis's criminal exploits. Michael, now living under a cloak of anonymity in a rundown part of a nearby city, had been Travis's trusted partner in misdeeds. Yet the now ominous whispers that threaded through the criminal underground spoke of Michael's own tainted legacy. Before any official summons could reach him, Michael was discovered lifeless in his cramped apartment, his body bearing identical marks of a meticulously engineered demise. Like Travis, his death was preceded by an injection designed to paralyze his muscles, followed by another substance that rendered his blood impotent in its ability to clot, and then carefully inflicted cuts that narrated a story of exhaustive, deliberate brutality. The same chilling signature, a scrawled, taunting inscription, appeared once again on a grimy mirror. This time the word judgment was etched in an almost calligraphic flourish, mirroring the signature seen at Travis's scene. Detectives now grappled with an unsettling pattern. These deaths were orchestrated with precision, as if performed by a hand methodically wiping out those bound by dark, shared pasts. Clues began to suggest that both Travis and Michael had once been entangled in a notorious case involving heinous violations against a vulnerable victim, details of which had left an indelible stain on the community's collective memory. In hushed interviews and cramped informant meetings, surviving witnesses recounted a grim tale of betrayal, pain, and long-held grudges. The notion that a hidden avenger might be pursuing a twisted form of retribution became more than a theory. It was a specter hovering over every step of the investigation. With each revelation, the detectives found themselves ensnared deeper in a tapestry of vengeance, where the clear lines between justice and retribution blurred beyond recognition. As forensic analysts pored over reports, the blood samples, the injection residue, and the precise incisions echoed a signature consistent with one meticulous hand, a hand that had not been deterred by years behind bars or by attempts at starting a new life. The killer's method was not that of a random psychopath. It was the work of someone who believed in poetic justice, a vigilante whose moral compass was as twisted as the crimes that still haunted the city's dark corners. Every new piece of evidence pointed back to a shared past, to a time when a heinous act had left invisible scars on more than one innocent soul. With growing urgency, detectives revisited old case files, dissected past confessions, and retraced the fraught steps of those formerly entangled in a notorious scandal. The sense of impending retribution was palpable, a storm brewing on the horizon that threatened to engulf more lives, and perhaps even the fragile sense of order in a city that had long danced on the edge of chaos. The investigation was no longer merely about solving murders. It had morphed into an exploration of whether vengeance could truly be justified, or if it was merely a destructive force tearing apart lives in its wake. Every detail was a piece of a larger, grim puzzle that dared to ask whether the pursuit of true justice could ever be achieved without sacrificing one's own humanity. Part 3. At the heart of this twisted saga lay a final, heart-wrenching piece of the puzzle, a case that had once been dismissed as a suicide, but now screamed of an even deeper malevolence. Investigators shifted their focus to a man named Bradley, a grieving father whose life had been shattered by an unforgivable crime in his past. The community had assumed that the weight of his sorrow had driven him to take his own life, that his final act was one of despair. But as detectives combed through the cluttered remnants of Bradley's modest apartment, the story behind his death began to unravel in unexpected ways. A careful analysis of the scene revealed inconsistencies that refused to align with the story of self-inflicted demise. Among the scattered belongings and faded photographs lay a set of meticulously arranged personal mementos and a series of hurriedly penned notes, clues that hinted at a struggle far more sinister than grief alone could incite. Then, almost as if echoing the previous horrors, investigators discovered a final signature etched on a battered mirror, the word Retribution. Its stark, deliberate lettering bore the unmistakable hallmarks of the same twisted hand that had sealed the fates of Travis and Michael. Every detail, from the paralyzing injections to the precision of the inflicted cuts, pointed unerringly toward a calculated vendetta, a methodical execution that combined elements of cold science with an almost poetic sense of justice. The evidence began to paint a portrait of an avenger driven not merely by sorrow, but by a burning desire to right unspeakable wrongs. Could Bradley's own death have been the culminating act of this hidden force? A final, incendiary moment in a bitter crusade against the ghosts of past transgressions? For investigators, the answer was as elusive as it was grim. The pattern emerging from the carnage forced a bitter confrontation with a disturbing possibility. The killer, with every methodical strike and taunting signature, was more than just an individual seeking revenge. He was the embodiment of a harsh, unyielding morality born from the darkest corners of the human soul, a mirror reflecting society's failures to deliver true justice to those most vulnerable. In the eerie quiet of the interrogation rooms and the dim, rain-soaked alleys, one question began to echo louder than the rest. Is it possible that the pursuit of vengeance might, in turn, unleash horrors no legal system could ever hope to contain? With each painstaking examination of forensic reports and every whispered confession, the lines between moral retribution and indiscriminate brutality blurred further. The dark figure responsible for these calculated murders seemed to blur the boundaries of victim and executioner, a lone specter challenging a system already steeped in corruption and despair. The city, with its neon lights and shadowed streets, now found itself gripped by an unsettling sense of foreboding, as if the very notion of justice had become as tainted as the crimes that birthed this relentless cycle of retribution. In the midst of this swirling narrative of blood and broken promises, a more lasting question emerged. When the instruments of justice are twisted into tools of revenge, can any of us truly claim the moral high ground? As the investigators pressed on, piecing together the shattered fragments of a case that defied all conventional logic, one thing remained abundantly clear. The search for truth had become as much a journey into the recesses of human despair as it was a quest for concrete evidence. And so, as the city's heartbeat pulsed in a symphony of anguish and quiet defiance, the final inquiries remained hauntingly unresolved. In a world where the scales of justice teetered precariously between order and chaos, one cannot help but wonder, Are we all, in some way, complicit in the cycle of retribution that continues to echo through our darkest nights?